Week 6 is here. And so your last chance to make your predictions, make your choices, let us know what you think is going to transpire on this big Saturday in college football. Underway on Thursday night, of course. We've got a Friday night that involves Cincinnati adding to its playoff resume in a huge way. Not really. Defeating Temple right now. I have not seen one play of this game, but Cincinnati, I understand, is blasting Temple. Yes, they are 34-3 right now. And Temple has gift wrapped much of this game to the Bearcats. Last night, of course, we had a Houston-Tulane game. Cougars winning 40-22. Coastal Carolina, top 15 team in America, winning over Arkansas State 52-20. And in about 90 minutes, Arizona State and Stanford get it underway, with Arizona State looking to make another step toward a Pac-12 South Division championship. So, despite all the jokes made in the Pac-12's behalf, Arizona State could take a huge step against the Stanford team that on occasion has been pretty darn good this year. If you look at the Oregon game last weekend and, of course, against USC a few weeks ago. So Oregon with the big wins over USC and Oregon, and Stanford, though, with losses to UCLA and Kansas State on opening night. Welcome into the Voice of College Football, and welcome into our call-in show on a Friday night, as we welcome everyone to call in. And I see that there are a number of comments already in the live chat. We will get to those, and we will run down week 6. Week 6, Cincinnati scores again. I don't think they get any style points. Maybe they do with the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. Now 41-3 over the poor Temple Owls. Keep in mind that Rutgers scored 61 against that team. People are impressed with the Cincinnati resume, looking at that Notre Dame game in particular. I know that that has been much of the discussion that we've had here over the last few weeks. Once Cincinnati hit those Indiana and Notre Dame games, is trying to weigh the qualifications of the Bearcats against the Power 5 champions to be. Anything on your mind concerning college football, of course, is free game. Week 6, college football playoffs, conference races, Heisman Trophy race, whatever you want to talk about, bring it here. Bring it here. I don't want to put too much emphasis on the playoff or the invitational. Also want to remind everyone that before the Week 6 games are played, most of them on Saturday, of course, we're already in the middle of Week 6 with a ranked team playing tonight, Cincinnati. And is Arizona State ranked in the AP or coaches poll, which I tend to not acknowledge. So that's an odd question coming from me about the rankings of the teams. But full flight of play on Saturday. And so before most of the games are played on Saturday, check out our Patreon offering. Go to Voice of College Football on Patreon. Actually, MarkRogersTV. We've had a bit of a transition in branding, so you got to go to MarkRogersTV there on Patreon, or grab the link in the description section of any of the videos to go to Patreon and check us out there. We've got a ridiculous lineup once again this week of post-game shows on Saturday. So starting with those noon matchups of Texas, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and Maryland, those two games in particular, throughout the day, post-game shows, lock it in on your favorite Voice of College Football channel. And we've got post-game shows available for you all over the place, including, of course, right here with me. Great to see all sorts of folks on the line. Exploring with Ben. First, Exploring with Ben, we appreciate you encouraging everyone to hit the like button. I don't believe George would have done that without your prodding. John, what's in it for me if I hit the like button? Does everything have to be in it for you? Really? John asking, how are we doing the week 6 winners and losers already? Most of the games have not been played yet. Basically, the idea of the topic tonight, I'm just encouraging conversation, John. Don't take it too seriously in terms of a title there. Winners, week 6, winners and losers. Who do you think they're going to be? Yes. Exploring with Ben. I've been here for an hour plus, but that's because I'm in Trinidad and my computer is set for Central. Exploring with Ben. Thanks for being here. Not you, Stexer. Good to see you. Christopher, good to see you as well. I am basically here to take phone calls, basically, and read the live chat. I've not prepared anything. And we'll go through the college football schedule on Saturday. Hey, John. Brian's here. Notre Dame, Virginia Tech. We're going to have pregame and postgame Notre Dame, Virginia Tech. So lock it in for that. 5 p.m. right here, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Hokie House, Virginia Tech pregame for the Notre Dame game. And then after the game, we're going to have the Virginia Tech Notre Dame pregame, or the postgame for the Virginia Tech side is going to be on the Virginia Tech channel and the Miami channel. Hey, Cheryl. Yes, support the show. Kenneth, what up with you? Good to see everybody else. John, Tony. It's good to see our Iowa contingent getting fired up. I for years was hoping for Iowa fans to show up on this channel, and they have finally arrived. I think our friend Corey Brada, his efforts on the Iowa channel brought some Hawkeye fans over here. This is good to see. Love it. There was like one Iowa fan that would comment all the time, and I can't remember his name, but we're talking 3, 4, 5 years ago. One Iowa fan. Kenneth, do we see Urban Meyer back in the college game 2 years from now? I can see that. Yes. I would hope that he would address other things in his life first, but I can see him in the college game. What I would hope to see for him versus what he's going to do are two different things. And despite this transgression, to whatever degree you rate it, evaluate it, versus other issues in his life in the past, versus the coaching accomplishments and the obvious greatness there, he can still pretty much pick his job, or will be able to at some point. There may be some schools and will be some schools that will not want to be connected to Urban Meyer right now. Some separation. The separation occurs, of course, every week. We've got some separation. Good to see you, Tony. Yeah, I'm having a hard time getting Cincinnati into the playoffs. I'm having a hard time really believing that Cincinnati is a playoff team with a playoff resume. And I hate that because if they go undefeated, I think that any team that goes undefeated should have an opportunity to play for the national championship. Otherwise, why play the games? Why are we playing football? If you're at Appalachian State and you go undefeated, then one of two things needs to happen. We need to either honor that record or we need to blow up the scheduling, take it out of the hands of the schools, which we need to do anyway, and structure the scheduling in such a way that it is equitable. Okay, Christopher, understand a case scenario versus talking about the 2021 season. Just talking about whomever. I know Appalachian State is not undefeated. I watched them play Miami. Understood, Christopher. Yes, I'm just talking a hypothetical situation involving anybody of that level of play. Gee, Bama boy, no, Mark, you need to pick better teams, I guess is what you're saying. I don't know what you're talking about. The Rod Farva, what would the opinion be if Urban was 4-0 instead of 0-4, or if the Jags were 2-2? Okay, my opinion about what he did would be exactly the same. The public opinion would be vastly different, I'm sure, by many people. But my evaluation of what he did doesn't change as to whether he's 0-16 or he's the next Bill Belichick. Yeah, I'm just having a hard time with Cincinnati and its schedule. I think that Cincinnati needs to be 2 games better than anyone else. I think that their record needs to be 2 games better than a Power 5 champion. So I am not seeing the schedule. I'm seeing a 1-game season, and then we'll see about SMU. Christopher asks, do you consider, I guess he's asking me, possibly he's asking the chat, do you consider Colorado State a legitimate football program? I consider every program in the FBS to have a legitimate football program. Super sticker coming in from Falconer X. Falconer X, thank you so much for the super sticker. You are the king of the super stickers. So everyone, in addition to the super chat option, you've got the option of the super sticker. And I hope everybody's here again tomorrow night after the action on Saturday, because I think that is probably the best 3 hours, almost 4 hours last week of conversation that we have with all of you at the end of Saturday's games, coming on here, talking college football, taking your calls, your comments, your questions, your debate topics, your trash talking, all of it after the games are played. We have an amazing time on Saturday night here at the Voice of College Football. So you make it an appointment to be here, but also bring in some people that you know, some people that aren't aware that we're here talking college football. Let them know. Christopher, Mark, what do you something about Colorado State and Steve Addazio? I thought Steve Addazio did a fairly decent job at Boston College. He had one down season at 3-9. Otherwise, 7-6 was pretty much the standard there at Boston College, which is a capable job, but not an outstanding job because BC has done better and looks to do better in the near future under Jeff Hafley. Now he goes to Colorado State. I got to tell you that I don't know much about Colorado State. The little bit that I know currently about Colorado State comes from that performance against Iowa, that they were able to defensively contain Iowa for more than a half, 7 points in the first half. They have a tight end who can play. And otherwise, Colorado State, I've not seen them play this year. Here we go from Obey Trey. Mark, in your opinion, which team has no shot of making the playoffs but could throw a wrench in the playoff race? Okay, that's a wide open question, but it's a good one. We have an Iowa team that could remain undefeated after tomorrow night's game against Penn State, and they could face a Wisconsin team that is hobbling and battered and beaten and bruised and not scoring much late in the season. But the Wisconsin-Iowa game is at Camp Randall Stadium, so look out for Wisconsin to possibly blow up Iowa's season in regards to a college football playoff appearance. I would say that in the Big Ten Eastern Division, I don't expect Michigan State to hang in there for the entirety of the competition to the end, but I believe that they're the type team that could pull off an upset. So we'd have to go through the Big Ten schedule week by week to see if Michigan State's going to be in that position, but they would be one to look out for in the Big Ten Eastern Division, knocking off an Ohio State or Penn State or Michigan once they've lost a couple games. So Michigan State and Wisconsin in the Big Ten. This Nebraska team, the way they're playing right now, and their final three games are against Ohio State, Iowa, and Wisconsin, but the Huskers are playing well, as we know, coming off a couple impressive but losing efforts against Oklahoma and Michigan State. The defense has been pretty phenomenal, holding Michigan State to no first downs in the second half, and then finally breaking out against Northwestern. So Nebraska is a team to look out for in the Big Ten in regards to being a spoiler. In the ACC, it could be just about anyone because we've got a situation where Wake Forest is probably the only team. Think about this. Wake Forest is probably the only ACC team that can make the college football playoff. Possibly NC State, possibly BC with one loss, Virginia Tech with one loss. So a one-loss ACC champion is going to have to fight their way into the playoff. An undefeated Power 5 champion should be good to go. So there's all sorts of teams that could pull off an upset to derail either Wake's season or Virginia Tech or the other teams I mentioned, NC State and BC with one loss. Actually, the team with basically no shot to make the playoffs that is going to probably be the biggest spoiler, Obey Trey, is Clemson in the ACC. In the SEC, I think that Ole Miss could be a factor late in the SEC schedule. They, of course, have already played Alabama. I don't know who they play on the flip side besides Vandy. So they may not actually be in a position because we've got Alabama, we've got Georgia. Who's going to derail one of their two seasons? Who is that opportunity? Well, of course, it's Auburn late against Alabama. I think that out of all the games left on Alabama's schedule, and I would not have said this a few weeks ago before Ole Miss and now Texas A&M coming up tomorrow, that most likely Auburn in the Iron Bowl has the best shot of defeating Alabama on Bama's schedule. So I'll say Auburn to take down Alabama. Again, that's not a prediction. That is answering the question of who could play spoiler Wisconsin, Michigan State in the Big Ten, possibly Nebraska. Clemson could play spoiler. They are the best candidate to play spoiler because they still have the best team and the most talented team in the ACC, but they've got just the one loss in the ACC, but 2 losses overall. And then in the SEC, again, Auburn, and then Florida's the obvious choice to take down Georgia, possibly in a couple weeks in Jacksonville, and nobody else is capable outside of Kentucky. They've got to go to Athens. That's going to be difficult. And Kentucky's playing for a SEC championship game berth themselves. And I know that probably nobody listening to this right now believes that Kentucky has a shot in hell of getting to Atlanta, but technically speaking, they are no worse set up than Georgia right now at 5-0. And in a sense, they're actually set up better because they've already taken out Florida. And then in the Big 12, I think there's a glut of teams. It, again, depends on who you consider to be favorites. Right now, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are tied for first place, and they're 5-0. But Texas only has the 1 loss, and they're probably playing the best football right now. I'm a bit disappointed by TCU. I thought TCU was going to be more of a factor in the Big 12. So look out for TCU. And I don't know who can really play spoiler in the Pac-12 because the Pac-12 has spoiled itself, has sabotaged itself by not beating marginal, mediocre FCS and group of 5 teams. But to look at the one team that could possibly still have a chance in the Pac-12, that would be, of course, Oregon. And what about the Civil War game against Oregon State? The Beavers are playing well. They beat Oregon last year. They're at 4-1. How about that? Let's size this up before I go to the schedule. And do we have any calls coming in? No, we don't. I will get the call number to the screen here in just a second. 860-499-3332. Think about this. Let's go with the most unlikely champions in all the Power 5 conferences that, through 5 weeks, have put themselves in a position to win the conference. So I'm talking about Wake Forest in the ACC, 5-0. Kentucky in the SEC, 5-0. Oregon State in the Pac-12 at 4-1, with their only loss outside of the conference at Purdue. Big 12 champion to be. How about Oklahoma State? And in the Big 10, of course, Michigan State. There are your most unlikely Power 5 conference champions. Imagine that playoff scenario. Kentucky, Wake, Michigan State, and Oklahoma State are all 5-0 right now. And Oregon State has the best record in the Pac-12 at 4-1. That's 5 completely out of nowhere, unexpected champions. What if 2 of them came through? Let that be the question right there. Out of Wake Forest, Kentucky, Michigan State, Oklahoma State, and Oregon State. And keep in mind, all of those are undefeated, aside from Oregon State, and lead their conferences right now, are at least tied for first place with a 2-0 record in conference play. All those teams, think about that. We wouldn't have been able to say this. I don't know when the last time we would have been able to say that teams of the level of Wake, Michigan State, Oklahoma State, Kentucky, and Oregon State, through 5 weeks of play, were undefeated and leading their conference races. Think about that. So if 2 of them pull through, who are the most likely to? I don't even know if I can answer that question, my own question, because they all have to run into gauntlets, except Wake. And I think Wake would be the most unlikely candidate from the standpoint of having a quality football team other than Oregon State. I think if we were going to rank those teams, Kentucky's the best. Kentucky's probably the best team out of those 5, then Michigan State, then Oklahoma State, then Wake, then Oregon State. What do you think? How would you rank Wake, Oregon State, Michigan State, Oklahoma State, Kentucky? And then if 2 or 1, even one of them survive and make it all the way through, who is the most likely to pull off the miraculous and win a major conference from that place? Connor Johnson is telling us that Oregon State would have beaten Purdue if they had started Chance Nolan instead of Neuer, the Colorado transfer. Oh, I can tell from G-Dog Forever's comment that he's being picked on about 1980. We should probably have those debates during the off season. Doug Phelps believes that Wake Forest and Kentucky would be the 2 teams out of that scenario that would make it through to the college football playoff. Jimmy is telling us that Marcus Majors is back at Oklahoma. Jet says Cincinnati opponents are not sniffing the top half of scoring or scoring defense in the nation. Among the worst schedules in the nation, they would get boat raced in the SEC. Jet, do you believe that they would get boat raced in the other 4 conferences, though? Cheryl, good song selection. Well done by you, Patsy Cline. Crazy, beautifully sung. Beautiful, beautiful. One of the great vocalists of all time. We got a call. Maybe if I would post the call-in number, then we would get some more calls. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Mark. This is the real MVP. How you doing?
The real MVP. What's going on?
Well, I would think out of your scenario with the 5 teams that's most likely to make it, I think Michigan State could make it even with 1 loss just because of how difficult the Big Ten is, especially that division. And Oregon State, I think, is the most likely to not lose another game just because of how soft the Pac-12 is in general.
Okay.
I don't think Kentucky has a shot because they got to play Georgia and then Alabama. And if they beat both of those teams, which will not happen, they would be the number 1 seed and probably the favorite, but that ain't going to happen. And then Wake Forest, 3 road games in 4 weeks. That's difficult for any team.
Yeah, none of them are likely. None of these scenarios I'm giving are likely, but I'm hoping that out of those 5, that maybe 1 can happen.
Well, let me throw you another scenario, a wrench on this, okay? What about BYU?
Yep.
I mean, we got to give them some love. I know in your video talking about Cincinnati versus Wake Forest, one of your arguments against Cincinnati was the lack of Power 5 opponents that their competition was playing. Well, BYU is playing Power 5 teams.
Some.
They might, they might have been the Pac-12 winner in Arizona State.
That would certainly help their cause. That's for sure.
Yeah, Arizona State, in my opinion, looks like the most consistent team through 5 weeks of Pac-12 play.
I think Oregon's the best team, but I would agree that Arizona State has. I'm going to be interested, and I'm going to watch this game tonight. I know a lot of people dismiss the Pac-12, but I still enjoy all the 5 conferences plus. And I'll be watching this game tonight, and it'll be a real mess if Stanford then wins this game and continues to drag more teams into the mire in the Pac-12, and nobody's going to come out with a good record.
Yeah, why don't you give Stanford some love? I mean, they've already beaten Oregon and USC. Why don't you throw them with Oregon State?
Because I was selecting the team with the best record, both in conference and out of conference, in all 5 conferences, that was an underdog type of team, the least likely. So, of course, Wake Forest is the only candidate in the ACC. They're the only undefeated team. Obviously, there's a lot of teams to choose from in the Big Ten, but I was taking the least likely. That would be Michigan State. So I was taking the least likely team that's leading that conference currently. Just to say, how crazy would this be? Well, if all of them were able to complete it, it would be ridiculous, and it's not going to happen. But maybe one of them could continue this magical ride through.
Yeah, I think it would have to be either Oregon. I think Oregon State, just because of how weak their conference is in general, and with the inconsistent play of Oregon, because I know they're the best team and they have the highest, but they were in a 1-possession game against Arizona in the 4th quarter at home.
Yeah,
there is no excuse or example for that to happen, regardless if you're anybody. So that's why I think Oregon State would have the best chance there. And also, for anybody who may be an athlete, in the comment section below, Arizona is hosting open tryouts October 12th.
Open tryouts to anybody. We're not talking about for a punter or kicker. We're talking about for real football players.
Anybody.
Anybody out there think they can play some Pac-12 football? Give it a shot.
That tells you how much of a dumpster fire they are.
Anybody that's listening to me right now, whether this is live or on the replay, go to the tryout, give it a shot. Video archive, everything. We'll show it here at the Voice of College Football. We'll talk to you. We'll have you on. We'll show your video clips of you trying out for the Arizona football team. Let's see this happen.
You might get a job with how bad some of the positions are. I mean, I feel sorry for them, honestly. I mean, they haven't won a game in, 2 years now? 3 years almost?
Yeah, they're like 17 straight. Yeah.
They lost to Northern Arizona.
Yeah, they did.
They lost to an 0-2 FCS team. That's bad. I'm sorry, but that's pathetic. But and speaking of that, that's why I think Oregon State would have the best shot. I mean, Washington we thought would be a juggernaut. Everybody had them in the polls being ranked 20 in the preseason polls, which I know you don't like, but everybody thought they were high. They lost to Montana.
I agree with you, to real MVP, that Oregon State is the choice because of the poor schedule, but I don't want them to be the one because they'll get left out. They've already got a loss. For one thing, they've already got a loss, so they're not going to make it in. But the other 4 have a chance. They've got a real shot if they go undefeated, and should be selected if they go undefeated.
Well, what do you think about BYU if they go
Okay,
undefeated.
I just pulled up their schedule.
Oh.
Okay. Boise State tomorrow, at Baylor, at Washington State, at Virginia, Idaho State, Georgia Southern, USC. So I posted a BYU video a couple weeks ago after that. I think it was just this past Friday night after they beat Utah State. I thought this is time to talk some BYU football and kind of size up their opportunity here. I think that's a very respectable schedule that they have left. It's just not, they don't have a marquee win yet, and they're not going to have one. Anything close to one. Who's going to be the best team that they're going to beat?
Let's say Arizona State wins the Pac-12.
Yes.
At like 10-2.
Yep, that's what they need. Yep.
Would that be enough to put them in the playoff?
BYU goes undefeated. Arizona State wins the Pac-12 at 10-2. It'll be 11-2 after the championship game, so they'll probably be a top 10 team in the country, top 12. So they'll have that. Utah, it would be nice if they finished, let's say, 8-4, and that was a pretty good win. And then they've got
UCLA.
They do not play UCLA.
Okay, I thought they played UCLA.
USC, the last game. USC's
in 4-7-5. They're decent.
Yeah, they could do something like that. Baylor's they lost again. So Baylor lost to Oklahoma State this past weekend. So they're 4-1. So it'd be nice to have a Baylor. Sure. Let's not get too ridiculous and ask for too much. But can you imagine if Baylor won the Big 12 and Arizona State won the Pac-12? That would be phenomenal.
I think BYU would almost be certainly in at that point. I mean, that would be a hard road for them to argue against. Say, we didn't beat just one conference champ. We beat two. We're better than this league and that league.
I love it. That would be phenomenal. Love to see it. I want to see chaos.
I know. That would be chaos. That would be chaos. I think this game for Arizona State, if they beat Stanford, Stanford's what, 4-1?
3-2.
They can move up in the polls. 3-2?
Yeah. They lost to UCLA and Kansas State.
But they beat Oregon and USC. That's just the most Pac-12 thing ever. Beat Oregon and USC, but they lost to UCLA and Kansas State.
They did.
That makes no sense. But I think BYU's got a good shot. I think they have. Would it be crazy to say they have a better shot than Cincinnati?
I think they have a better. At first look, I think they've got a better schedule. So let's. Boy, yeah.
Let's say they both go undefeated. Both are 12-0.
Yep.
And you have to pick one or the other team.
Okay, what's going to hurt BYU is that Cincinnati is going to be 13-0 and BYU 12-0.
Yeah.
So in order, Cincinnati's best wins are going to be Notre Dame number 1, SMU number 2, SMU number 3, because they'll play them again in the conference championship game. Then after that, they don't play Memphis. They don't play Houston, who's 5-1 right now. They're not on the schedule.
Sure. They might, well, you said SMU twice. They might be able to get SMU than Houston if Houston keeps winning like this.
True. Good point. Yeah. Let's see what we got here in the American Conference. Yeah.
UCF. Who's lost to 0-3 Navy. Eastern Carolina.
After Notre Dame, SMU, or SMU Houston, I don't really see a win that, Indiana. They need Indiana, which is most likely not going to happen either. Indiana's going to go 5-7, but they're probably the 4th best team on their schedule.
Right.
So compare that to BYU. Let's say their best wins Arizona State. Let's say their second best win's what? Baylor. Then let's say USC.
Yeah, at Baylor too.
At Baylor, at USC. Then probably fourth would be, let's say, Utah. Then probably like Boise
Virginia.
State, Virginia. You know, they've got a schedule that is more like 6 or 7 teams deep, and Cincinnati's is more like 3, maybe 4 teams deep.
I'm just throwing this out here, Mark. That would
BYU.
be a great video idea if you compared Cincinnati versus BYU.
All right. Let's hope they both survive. Well, I think Cincinnati's safe tonight. I'm going to call this a win for Cincinnati. I know I'm going out there, but we're going to say Cincinnati's safe with a victory tonight. And BYU's got this game against Boise State. It's an ABC game at 3:30 tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, little BYU Cincinnati comparison. I like that.
I think that. And then what is Temple? They're 3-2. I think they're 3-2.
They lost to
Rutgers. I think
Rutgers.
Georgia's team is also 3-2. That's interesting, but so with let me so let me throw another. I know Boston College just lost.
Yeah, that's too bad.
But their backup quarterback, they didn't have their quarterback in. And the committee looks at those types of things. They've openly said it.
I don't know if their quarterback's going to come back, period.
Okay. Well, if he doesn't come back, then they got no shot.
Let me look that up. Phil Jurkovec, see if he's coming back. I think he's done for the year.
Oh, okay.
Hand surgery. So initially it said could potentially miss the rest of the season. So who knows?
Okay, because I was going to say, if they go undefeated, I know one of the things the committee looks at is who was injured and do they get them back. So that could be another wrench in the toolkit.
Yep.
And so we lost to Clemson by only 6 points, 20 yards, and they probably would have beat Clemson if they had them in the game. It's crazy. Well, I mean, we're 5 weeks in the season. We're talking about Oregon State.
Love it.
Wake Forest making the college football playoff. Good God.
Wake Forest, if they don't screw up the next 3 weeks, they've got Syracuse, Army, and somebody else really bad. I think it's Duke. So they should be 8-0, and then it gets tough.
That's 3 road games in 3 road games out of 4 is.
Yeah.
I think they almost got to trap up one. I mean, if it was 2-2, I can kind of see it, but 3-4, I mean, that's a tough fast for any team out of the country.
I know we're talking about Wake Forest too, but they're not playing Murderers Row. They're not playing Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Ole Miss. They're playing NC State, North Carolina, Clemson, and BC. They could beat each one of them. It's just the likelihood of them beating all 4 of them is minuscule. Cincinnati scores again.
See, I have Spectrum, so I'm live streaming it. I'm always 20 or 30 seconds behind. If you got the cover on Cincinnati, you're looking well because it was 39?
I didn't look at this game. I did not look at this game, but yeah. I got to make my picks.
You want to talk? Let me go into a transition of another game, speaking of betting, and that is Notre Dame takes on Virginia Tech on the road, and it's a pick'em.
Yep.
That's a strange pick'em. Because I personally would have thought Notre Dame would have been favored by like 2 or 3 points. I get it's at Blacksburg. They're at night. They only lost to West Virginia, who's not bad, not good. They're just kind of an average West Virginia team. Well, that's surprising, in my opinion. But
well, Notre
part of
Dame's
me,
not really
I'm not sure.
beaten anyone decisively.
Oh, I understand that, but I just have a hard time believing in any team in the ACC this year. They're kind of like the Pac-12, in my opinion. I would just stay away from all of them because I have no idea who's going to beat who, and none of the games make any sense to me. Who do you like, Mark? Or are you going to pick that game on your Patreon page?
Yes, I've got to honor my patrons over there at the Voice of College Football Community, so they get my picks.
Yeah, and it's only $5.
$5 per month, folks.
Per month. Yeah,
you get a lot more than that. You just don't get my picks. You get a lot more than that. But yeah, $5 on Patreon.
Yeah, you get
per month.
20 sports media members picks as well.
That's it.
Exclusive
the real MVP. He knows
picks.
you could do the promos for me.
Hey man, you keep me on the phone for a long time, so I got to show the love back to you.
Well, you are it tonight. For typically, as you well know, I'm usually telling people, okay, we're not taking any more calls. The phone lines are jammed. No more calls. Please, thank you. I appreciate it, but no more calls. Tonight, you're it.
I know. It feels weird. I'm like the star of the show.
Yeah, there's nobody else waiting. How many people are on the line here? Is there like 3 people? 117. Okay.
I know. Maybe they just all like hearing me. I mean, there's never been a moment in internet history where 117 people say that's one person we all can get behind. But maybe this is the first, Mark. So let me go to another game real quick. And it's hard because some of the teams are on buys. Like, well, let me ask you about this, okay? So Clemson has their bye.
Yep.
This week. And people have been talking about firing their offensive coordinator, their wide receiver coach, or anything like that. Do you think any of those types of moves are going to happen?
I think they're unlikely, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility because this is a spot in which those moves are made.
Yeah. Would you think it's fair to say that Clemson's offense has been the most disappointing unit in all of college football?
Just gave me another video idea. Disappointing units, teams, etc. Off the top of my head, absolutely. Because Oklahoma's disappointing. They're not scoring a ton of points, but they're moving the ball. Spencer Rattler's putting up nice numbers. They're just not prolific, explosive, scoring 45, 50 points a game as is usual. The Clemson offense is atrocious. Yes, that is the most disappointing unit in the country. I don't think it's who else would be in the running. Like Wisconsin's offense is just as bad, but we don't expect Wisconsin's offense to be Clemson's offense.
That's true. Well, if you want to pair that, then you can talk about units that have been performing above expectations. And you can throw Ole Miss's defense on there.
Ole Miss's defense.
They've performed much better than I thought a lot of people have anticipated.
Okay. I think a lot of people
expected.
Yeah. Absolutely, they're better. Let's. So what's good about the suggestion you just made is that this is week 6, so just about everybody's going to have 6 games played, and that's of course halfway through the season. So mid-season grades, and let's see what Ole Miss does defensively against Arkansas. The Ohio State defense is underachieved.
Yes, that's a good one. Whoever commented that. That's a good one.
I would look at the, we're obviously just throwing teams around, but I'd do a little bit of a deep statistical dive. I'd look at North Carolina's offense in this too.
Yeah, North Carolina's been a disappointment as a whole.
Yeah.
People were saying their quarterback, I forget it,
Sam Howell
was going to be Sam Howell. He was going to be his Heisman hopes, man. They came and win in 1 week.
Pretty much.
First day of college football. First day.
Well, the real MVP, some folks out there have taken to your challenge, and they are on the phone lines now. So I'm going to bid you adieu. We'll be here tomorrow night, of course.
It was good talking to you for this long.
Absolutely.
It was good talking to you for this long, Mark. I'm glad other people have finally talked because I'll be honest, I came in here with a few topics. So I've been ad-libbing for like 15 minutes. But, hey, I'm glad I got you a few good video ideas, and have a great rest of your show.
We covered some ground, man. Have a good night.
Yeah.
All right. We'll keep it going here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Yeah, hi. This is Wes in Allentown.
Hey, Wes. Mark? I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, so you were just covering a lot of ground there. I just have a couple of things to talk about, I suppose. First off, let's assume that the football, college football plays out the way that it's been going here. Georgia and Alabama get to the SEC championship. One of them has to win that game. Do you think both of them get into the playoffs, assuming a close championship?
Okay. Anytime we pose a question like that, there needs to be a little bit more context, but we'll take it on anyway because we have to know what's going on elsewhere in the country. But
Okay. I'll give you some more context.
Okay.
So, Georgia, Alabama, they make it undefeated. They get to the championship game. One of them has to win. It's a field goal game in the SEC championship, right? Big Ten, you have, take your pick, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, undefeated wins. And they win, by 10 points in their championship game, over Iowa, or I assume Iowa.
Okay.
Pac-12, I don't know. I don't follow the Pac-12 all that closely. Somebody there has to win. I don't think one of their teams is getting in this year.
Okay, leave them out. Move on.
ACC. Okay, ACC. It could be NC State, maybe Wake Forest. I think maybe one of them gets in. I don't know. Big 12.
Wait a minute. Just give me a team and a record and a conference. So NC State wins the ACC. Is that what you're giving me?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. NC State wins. And honestly, I don't know if they're undefeated right now. Let's say they get in with one loss.
They've lost a game.
Okay, so let's say they get in with one loss.
Okay.
And then Pac-12, let's say Texas gets in with one loss.
The Big 12.
Or
okay,
they
Texas
win
one loss. Okay.
Yeah, Texas, a one-loss
okay.
Texas. And let's say in Oregon with one loss.
Okay.
And Michigan undefeated.
Okay.
And then you've got your, call it Alabama, Georgia. One of them's undefeated. One of them has one loss.
Okay. Winner of the SEC's in, undefeated. The winner of the Big Ten, Michigan's undefeated. They're in. Those two are in and easy to select. The other two, we've got a selection to be made between Oregon, NC State, Texas, and a one-loss SEC runner-up, Georgia.
Yeah, I see Georgia getting in.
I think they would get in as
Which-
well, as long as that game was close. If the game was a
Close,
blowout,
yeah, close game.
there could be
Call
an
it
issue.
a touchdown or less.
Okay.
Yeah, call that game a touchdown or less. I think they're in.
Yeah, so Georgia probably would be in. I don't necessarily think that they should be in, but that's a conversation for
think
another
it's what would
time.
happen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think they'd be
think it's what would
selected.
happen.
I think there's a reason we have conferences and champions of conferences, but
I agree.
so we'd have one spot between NC State, Oregon, and Texas. Well, the committee's
Texas.
going to be
All with one loss.
they're going to be reviewing resumes at that point. And
It
Oregon
probably ends up being Texas.
Oregon to date has the best win, but at that point Texas may have 2 wins over Oklahoma. I guess they would. They'd have a win, of course, this week, and then they'd beat somebody in the Big 12 championship game, and that might be Oklahoma again. And they
Or an Oklahoma State that could be up
sure.
there.
Regardless. And then, it's just, I would have to sit here and I'd have to rank wins and go through the metrics of basically sizing up the schedules, just like I did with BYU and Cincinnati, to determine who is the best schedule between. And most likely the best schedule is, okay, who would they have losses to? Oregon would have its loss to Stanford, Texas, its loss to Arkansas, and NC State's already lost to Mississippi State. So the way things stand right now, Texas has the loss to the best team. So they have the quote unquote best loss. From a competitive standpoint, Oregon has a more understandable loss in that they lost in the last few seconds to Stanford. Again, it's a matter of running the metrics on the schedule strength and determining who's the most deserving.
Exactly. That's kind of my whole point is, and I think that's where your feelings are in this particular scenario. Georgia and Alabama would both get in. One would be whoever wins it would be the 1, whoever loses it would be the 4. And then the Big Ten champ would be in, assuming undefeated, even with one loss. A Michigan has one loss or a Penn State has one loss. They're going to be in. After that, it's like roll the dice and see who pops up. It's a little bit of how crazy the selection committee is and how you got to figure it out. It's one of these where you've got 4 spots for 5 conference champions, plus if you had a Cincinnati or a BYU or somebody else. A little ridiculous, but that's kind of the point I was trying to make there.
You could make that scenario much more difficult if you displaced Michigan and put in Ohio State as a 1-loss Big Ten champion, because then the decision has to be made between Oregon and Ohio State. And I believe that committee would say Ohio State's a better team, and everybody in that room would believe that and think that they would have the better resume, but Oregon won the game head to head.
Right. And there's precedent for that. The 2016 season, Penn State won the Big Ten by beating Ohio State and then beating, I believe, Wisconsin, and guess who got into the playoff? Ohio State.
That's not exactly the same, because the precedent has been set in regards to the head-to-head, but in that scenario, Ohio State, number 1, had a more difficult schedule. They beat Oklahoma out of conference. They had a tougher Big Ten Western Division schedule, and they also had a better record than Penn State. Penn State was 11-2. Ohio State was 11-1.
Right, but if you want to talk about conference champions mattering, then that's where you go. And I'm not saying Penn State deserved to be in the playoff that year. I don't think they did. But at some point, conference champions, when you're trying to pick 4 out of 5 or 6 or 7 possible contenders, it's tough. So it leaves me another question. How big of a playoff do you think we would need to get every legitimate contender a shot? I think it's 8. I don't think in any year there's any more than 8 teams that could have a legitimate shot to win the championship. How you pick those 8, up for debate.
So if the health of the players did not have to be considered, I would want to see a 16-team playoff. But to answer your question about how many teams do I estimate that we would need to have in a playoff to legitimately cover all the teams that have a, again, using that word, legitimate chance of winning a national championship? 8.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd love to see 16. I don't think it'll happen. 12 is a terrible number.
Yeah, 12 is an atrocious number.
I don't like 12.
No buys.
16 is a good number. 8, I think you can get there with 8, and it depends exactly how you pick those 8. You're still gonna have a committee doing it for the most part, I suppose.
You don't have to, but yeah, they would.
They would. 16, yeah. If you're not in the top 16, you don't really have a shot at getting there. I hate the 12 team concept.
You're a good man. I have on record of ripping that to shreds. There's a lot of reasons why it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I know you're a Big Ten guy, even if it's for, not the best team or not my favorite team. So let's talk about James. Let's talk about who do you think is the best game day coach in the Big Ten? I'm going to say Kirk Ferentz.
Well, that's a great selection because he's the first one that came to mind.
I don't know who else you can pick after him. You've got Ryan Day, who just wins games because of talent, and that's not like recruiting is a huge part of being a college coach. I don't necessarily think he's a great game day coach.
We have no reason to believe that he's not. That would be like saying Nick Saban's not a great game day coach because he's got the best talent.
So no, Saban's a different case. And I agree with you. I just don't think we have enough film on Ryan Day. I don't know. I don't watch enough Ohio State football, I guess.
Yeah, the best game day coach, I would go with Kirk Ferentz, number 1, and I would think about putting Pat Fitzgerald at number 2. And when you phrase it that way, for as much as I believe in Big Ten coaching and believe that there are strong staffs and head coaches across the Big Ten, I see issues with a lot of coaches on game day. James Franklin, Jim Harbaugh, Mel Tucker, we've not seen enough. Ryan Day, again, he has so much more talent than everybody else typically until he gets to a playoff scenario. Paul Chryst would be a decent one to select between Chris Fitzgerald, but I would go Kirk Ferentz as well with you. And I think PJ Fleck has done a pretty good job throughout his career on game day.
Yeah. I think you're right there. I just look at it sort of I don't want to call them mid-tier teams, but that's kind of what they are. Iowa's obviously having a great year this year. But you got Iowa, Northwestern, Minnesota. They're the teams that seem to have good coaches that have good development of their players and things like that. Wisconsin, they are always pretty good this year aside, quarterback issues, whatever their problem is. But you look at, say, a Penn State with James Franklin, and he's got good recruiting classes. He's got the talent, and I guess now good coordinators. I'm struggling to see it there. I know they've won some big games. This is a huge one coming up tomorrow with Iowa. So we'll see how it goes.
You could also make a case.
Coach.
Yep.
No, I would say I feel like for the Penn State versus Iowa tomorrow, it's going to come down to coaching. And well, I already told you who I think the best coach is.
Yep. Well, thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Have a good night. We could also put in Greg Schiano. He's done a nice job, and he can get the guys ready on game day against better teams. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
How's it going, sir? My name is Steve.
Hey, Steve.
How's it going? I know last night you kind of had a discussion. I'll paraphrase it a little bit, and also want to say that I'm not attacking you on this, but I know you mentioned, if Coastal Carolina were to go undefeated and run the table, would they deserve a shot in the 14 playoff? But I think as we all kind of speculated already, it would probably be a big disaster. They would probably get the number 4 slot. And, if all things shape out the way they are right now, they could play either Alabama or Georgia, then number 1 versus number 4, and get annihilated. I bring that up because if you look back at the bowl championship series when Northern Illinois was undefeated, and they played Florida State in the Orange Bowl, and they were annihilated like in the first quarter. It was downhill from there. But I'm all for seeing Coastal Carolina Coastal Carolina in the 12-team bracket, or even a 16-team bracket. I think that would be great for teams in the group of 5 getting in there.
Well, I have said for years that if we went to a 16-team playoff, this would be a bit controversial, but I would include all 10 conference champions.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you, and that would be great. Yeah, I think that would be the best way to go. Everyone else is an at-large bid.
Yeah,
so you have 6 at-large bids and 10 conference champions.
Yeah. It would still be largely a Power 5 field, but you would at least give credit to conference champions. And I have no issue with that. And I understand that the Sun Belt champion or the MAC champion or the Mountain West champion are not, to be reasonable and sensible about it, are not one of the 16 best teams in the country. But this is the way we've structured the sport. And these are the conferences, and they won and earned a conference championship after 13 games. And so I believe that they would have earned a place at the table.
Well, also, if we go to a 16-team format and you have 10 teams to get automatic bids as conference champions, then it would basically minimize the role of the committee, because I think the 6 at-large bids could go to basically strength of schedule as a major factor of getting a bid, and they wouldn't, decision making probably wouldn't be as difficult or prolonged as it is now.
Yeah, we don't need a committee.
But I think also
it's not necessary.
So how would you suggest selecting the group of let's say we had that 16-team format, and then we have 6 at-large teams. How do you propose that those are how they're going to be selected?
Here you go.
Who would select them?
So
who would select them?
Yep. Nobody selects anything. Nobody would select anything. Nobody selects anything in the NFL. Like, we don't need committees to select playoff teams. The standings select it. So we had a fun live stream sometime in the off season. We must have sat here for like 4 hours, and I unveiled with all sorts of, white erase boards what I would do. First and foremost, the scheduling has to be corrected. I've already posted tons of videos, and we'll do more on the off season of how we would correct scheduling. So you got to correct scheduling because we need scheduling to be equitable before we can go ahead with having a legitimate playoff system. So we fix the scheduling first, and then we look at the playoff format. So if you want to go to 16 teams, there's a couple different ways to do it, but the way that we're talking about here would be a la the NCAA basketball tournament. All the conference champions make it, and then we've got 6 at-large berths. Well, I think that those 6 at-large berths should go to the Power 5, and it would go strictly by record because, again, the record would be more valid. Everybody's record would be more valid because we just played an equitable schedule. So, again, I'm not going to go through that explanation here, but we would have an equitable in-conference and out-of-conference schedule. So we would not have this wild imbalance in schedules. Therefore, we would go by record. And I've played all this out. I've gone through the 7 playoff seasons to play this out. So, of course, you're going to have ties. You're going to have a number of teams that are, let's say, going to be 10-2 that are going to be lined up for the final playoff spot. And then you eliminate based on head-to-head, and that's only going to come up a few times. And then I believe that you go with what is called strength of record, which is a combination of the strength of schedule combined with the dominance against that schedule. And you don't have anybody select anything. You don't have people select playoff teams. I don't like it.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a good system as well. I would agree to that. And I think, people might say, well, if you let if the group of 5 teams, conference champions get in there, they're going to have early outs. But I think eventually there might be some upsets along the way. So I know you probably you discussed this before in the off season, but if you don't mind rehashing something. So, I know we have about a month to play with between the end of the season and when the bowls kick off. So how would this team format actually integrate into the season where it won't make it any longer or shorter?
Well, I've mapped that out as well. With the 16 teams, let's see. So you would have, if you don't shorten the season, you still have a 12-game season. 13th game is the conference championship game. So then you've got a 14th game, which is a first-round playoff game that takes us down to 8. Game number 15 is they play 16 games, correct?
Yes.
So it's been a few years since I posted all this and went through it all, but I think we would have to go back to an 11-game regular season.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, no,
I think so about that.
Unfortunately, I didn't compare with a lot of material tonight, but I appreciate your time on the phone. I just wanted to bring up that one scenario. But yeah, I think ultimately a 16-team format would be awesome. Hopefully that will come to fruition in the not too distant future.
It may come to fruition, but I doubt if it's going to come into fruition the way we just outlined it. I don't think that they're going to award all the conference champions. It's going to be a Power 5 heavy 16.
Well, you would hope that, at least the group of 5 will be integrated into that playoff system. So the whole of college football is involved, not just the group of 5 only and everyone else is just on the sidelines. I would like to see everyone, the whole scope of college football integrated into it. But who am I? I'm just a pawn in the whole thing. But well, thanks for your time, sir, tonight. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I'm not very prepared for discussion, but I appreciate it anyway.
You are more than prepared, sir. You can call anytime. This is why we're here. We just talk up college football. No reason to be over prepared, but I appreciate the call.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. So I got to say, this gets me a little excited. I'm excited for the games. That's why we're here, to watch college football. But once we get to the off season, we tear through all this stuff, and it's been a long time since I've posted some of these videos outlining the way I would approach scheduling and a playoff system. So that's going to be fun to do that for a lot of you new folks who have just joined us here at the Voice of College Football here in the last few weeks or last few months. So thank you for joining us. My special thanks to you new folks that have just found us here in the last few weeks or few months. But I'll unveil the playoff system and the scheduling format and all that in the off season. Not that we can't talk about it now. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
This is Jeremiah.
Hey, Jeremiah. How are you?
I'm doing good. I heard you're talking about the playoff system and them possibly expanding it. I know that whenever the SEC with Texas and Oklahoma moved to the SEC, caused a lot of the other conferences, I guess, to be. I'm not sure what the problem is with an expanded playoff necessarily, other than more SEC teams will get in, but they will also get in, which I don't really understand their thought process. They just don't like the SEC, or what? That's what you were thinking about that, and I have another question.
So when you say they, who's they? I'm sorry, I didn't follow that all the way through.
The Pac-12, the ACC, and the Big Ten. I think the Big 12 guys said it as well when they were talking about they were meeting to discuss playoff expansion.
Okay. I got you. So you're basically saying, why are these three other conferences upset with the SEC? Why are they mad?
Yeah.
Territory. There's a lot of reasons. So, question number one, who has the best conference in college football on the field?
The SEC.
Okay. What conference makes the most money, has the best attendance, the best TV ratings?
I think the Big Ten makes more money. But
You're a smart man.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done there. I thought I tricked you for a second. So that's very close between the SEC and the Big Ten, but the last two revenue years that have been reported, the Big Ten actually made more money than the SEC, but it's very close between the Big Ten and the SEC. They by far own the sport in terms of TV ratings, attendance, money. Okay. But with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma, that you are taking two of the top 10 football programs in the country, regardless of what you think of Texas and how they've underachieved for the past decade. And you are, first of all, you're crippling one conference. You are basically making it a group of five conference. You're ripping out those two blue bloods, adding them to the SEC. So you're adding two enormous programs to the best conference anyway. So it makes it richer, more valuable, and more dominant on the field. So that's a threat to everyone else. And the SEC knows when they accepted Texas and Oklahoma, and I'm going to defend the SEC for a second. By all reports, they didn't initiate this move. Texas and Oklahoma came to the SEC wanting to leave the Big 12. The SEC simply said, okay, what do you got for us? Can we make a deal? The SEC simply said, yeah, makes sense to us. Everybody's the problem with college football is that unlike professional sports where there's a league that is in place to protect and serve the best interests of everyone within the league, that's not the way college football operates. Everybody's in it for themselves. So on one hand, when the SEC makes a move, there's no governing body to say, no, that's not going to happen because that's going to hurt the sport. We got to keep these leagues balanced. No, there's nobody to do that. These teams and these leagues can change and do whatever they want. The only thing that stops them is money and penalties that have been set up. And, think about this, that the moment that the SEC and the Big 12 back up, Texas and Oklahoma announced leaving the Big 12 to go to the SEC, the Big 12 went into panic mode and they all met and talked about how they were going to survive. Well, while those meetings were reported to be very fervent and very intense about how could these two schools turn their back on us after they've been part of this league for all these years, if the Big Ten would have said, hey, Iowa State, come, we're going to give you X number of dollars and you could make X number of dollars more. Well, Iowa State would go from saying Texas and Oklahoma, those horrible institutions and those horrible football programs, they left us. They stabbed us in the back. They deserted us. And then they're off to the Big Ten. So everybody's in it for themselves. And it's not for the best interest of college football to begin with. I don't know if I answered your question because I kind of forget what your question was.
It was more or less. I get the Big Ten wanting to, I guess, be the power money making conference, but the Pac-12, ACC, other than the ACC team going undefeated like Clemson, the Pac-12 teams, if they mess up once, if they have a hiccup, they're not getting in. That's basically kind of like the bottom line for them, essentially, because they're the worst conference, maybe even slightly above the ACC this year, but usually they're the fifth worst Power 5 conference, if not a little lower than the AAC. And I don't know exactly why they would be against an 8-team playoff rather than the 14. Yes, the SEC is going to get more teams in, but they're going to get their teams in when they would otherwise not get them in. If you see what I'm trying to say.
Well, the expanded playoff is basically just going to be a proportionately just going to expand on what already exists. The SEC is guaranteed of a playoff spot currently, and sometimes may get in two, and they're going to get the most playoff teams in an expanded field. And the Big Ten will probably be next. And it's just going to be a extrapolation of what already exists. But if you go back and go through the 7 years of playoffs and expand it out based on the College Football Playoff Selection Committee's rankings, the Pac-12 is going to have plenty of teams in the playoffs.
In the 14 format?
16. If there was a 16.
Oh, 16. Well, yeah, okay. I was just going to say 8 because I think that's what they were eyeing, right? I think it was 8 or 12 teams in the playoffs. I ate 12.
12. Yeah.
But I think 8 was, I think, is what they were trying to aim for. And, the Pac-12 hasn't been relatively competitive. I think a couple years ago with Mike Leach and Washington State, they would have been in the playoff, and they didn't get in the playoff if they had the 8-team playoff. But now that OU and Texas are going there, I guess they think that the SEC is going to get like 5 or 6 teams in the playoff. I think that's a little ridiculous of an expectation. I think 4 is probably the max they'll ever get in there in the SEC. I don't know what you think about that.
In a 12-team playoff.
An 8 teams, 4 teams. SEC, I think max would ever get in there in 18.
Yeah.
I think a 12 team might be a little too big.
All right. Anything else?
Oh, also, I was curious what you think. I heard you talking with the real MVP about the BYU and the Cincinnati getting in. At first, I was like, okay, Cincinnati kind of got this in lock, but I was thinking about it, and I was thinking how I didn't really think Notre Dame was really that good of a team. I think they might drop another game or two, a game at least, I think. I don't know if they would get ahead of a Big 12 conference champion and a Big 10 conference champion. with one loss or undefeated. I don't see definitely not undefeated one if Oklahoma State or Oklahoma get there. But one loss, I think a one loss Texas or a one loss Oklahoma or Oklahoma State would get in ahead of Cincinnati and the Ohio State or Michigan undefeated or one loss would get ahead of Cincinnati. I don't know if you think Cincinnati has a realistic shot at kind of having locked down. I don't know what you think.
I think what we're going to see in a few weeks is that once the committee's first rankings are selected, that Cincinnati is going to be placed extremely high. I don't know what ranking that's going to be. It may not be as high as the AP and the coaches poll because they're ranking on a resume, and the resume is not great. And the resume, unfortunately for Cincinnati, is better today than it's going to be all season. It's going to continue to get worse and worse and worse and worse in comparison to all the Power 5 teams that they're competing with, whose resumes are going to get better and better and better and better and better as they stockpile wins against high-level Power 5 competition. And Cincinnati continues to play Tulsa and East Carolina and Temple tonight. Their resume is going to... So we may see an unveiling of the rankings in week 1 from the playoff committee where Cincinnati is, let's say, 7th. And they're going to continue to win, but they're going to drop unless the teams around them are losing and there is this mass chaos. But as long as the teams around them, in front of them and just behind them are winning, Cincinnati's going to drop. Their resume is going to worsen by the week. And the only thing that's going to hold that up once or twice is going to be a game against SMU. And that's not going to do that much. Their resume is not going to be that good. Their schedule's just not that good. They did their best. It's not their fault. They went out and scheduled Notre Dame and Indiana to play non-conference games. So I credit Cincinnati for trying to do everything that they possibly can. But the American Conference, which has been extremely strong for a group of 5, is unfortunately having a down year. And Indiana is not pulling through for Cincinnati, so that's turned out to be a marginal win at best. It really doesn't matter. It's just like them beating Houston or Memphis or somebody. And this Notre Dame game is really what people are looking at. I think the general college football fan is still stuck in the perception of the preseason, thinking, man, Cincinnati scheduled Indiana and Notre Dame. And if they get by those games and then they sweep the American Conference, because the American Conference has been pretty tough with UCF and Memphis and those teams, well, then Cincinnati should go to the playoff. But as it turns out, Cincinnati's schedule looks like it's pretty bad. And Notre Dame may save them to a certain extent, but I don't know that the committee's going to look at it like everybody else, like, oh, just because they beat Notre Dame and Notre Dame's 11-1, that this should earn a playoff spot. Why should Cincinnati be treated differently than any other team in the country? Meaning that if a Power 5 champion or a strong second-place team in a Power 5 league, they're not just holding up a win against Notre Dame as, well, we proved ourselves, we beat Notre Dame. No, they've got to beat like 5 teams that are near the level of Notre Dame.
Yeah. Texas to play like Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Baylor. They got to go through a little bit of a gauntlet there. The Alabama play Ole Miss, LSU, Arkansas this year, and maybe a couple other teams that switch in and out every couple of years. And Georgia plays Florida and Kentucky, and yeah. I guess I get that. The Big Ten has to look in Michigan, Penn State every single year. So I get that, and I feel bad for Cincinnati because they can't really help that. They don't have. There's not even if they filled all 3 non-conference games or top tier opponents, they probably still wouldn't get in just because of the level of competition in the AAC this year.
Well, yeah,
that's all I wanted to say.
I don't necessarily know that. I think if they stacked up 3 non-conference games, and if the American Conference this year was as good as it's been, then they would have a much better case, because there have been teams in that conference like Memphis and UCF that have been legitimate top 15 to 20 teams in the country, but they don't have that team now. They might have it in SMU, but we'll see.
Yeah, SMU would probably be there. They need SMU to stay undefeated until they play them, and then hopefully they stay undefeated after they play them.
And the style points that Cincinnati needs in that game against SMU are kind of tricky, because I truly believe that if Cincinnati lays waste to SMU, then all that's going to show is that they're so much better than everybody else in the conference, and that conference is really not that good. But if they win 28-27 against SMU, that's not going to look too good either. What probably is going to look best is just a solid win against SMU, and then they're going to hope that SMU goes out and wins the rest of its games.
Like a 10-point win is probably their target.
Yeah, where they look like, okay, we're dominant, we're strong, we are clearly the better team, but we didn't lay waste to this team like they're no good, and we're basically discrediting the entire league as being no good because we're beating everyone by 45 points, including SMU.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. But I feel like it's a group of 5 conference. So you would expect that. But at the same time, I get what you're saying, that they would say, well, they're not very good. They're not very good. And then just disposes the win. So they play like they're a G5 team against all their opponents. I think that shows that they're on a G5 level, a Power 5, P5 level. If you know what I mean.
All right, man. Well, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. Call back anytime.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, I think we'll take our next 2 calls, and let's watch some Arizona State Stanford college football. Let's do that. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. It's Exploring with Ben from Trinidad.
Calling all the way from Trinidad. We appreciate that. How you doing tonight?
Oh, not bad, Mark. I mean, it was a rough week as a Ducks fan. You know, seeing the tree chop down the duck. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, that was a upsetting loss for Oregon and the Pac-12.
It's an upsetting loss, especially for the Pac-12. As a Duck fan, yeah, it's really upsetting because Stanford is, like a rivalry game, really. It's almost like similar to Oregon State, because if you look back, last 10 years, 5 of the last 10 years, it's been like one of us has knocked each other out of the championship game when they've been, super competitive. So it's just one of those games. It's always a trap game for one team or the other.
Yeah, it kind of took us back to the early 2000s, or the early 2010s, I should say.
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly. Those were some rougher years. But God, the worst news came out later this week that I just saw it today. I haven't been keeping up, unfortunately, on news, because down here I'm not getting football, and so I'm busy with work. But yeah, so Oregon announced starting safety Williams is out with a broken leg. But apparently that happened during the Stanford practices. He broke his leg, and then Verdell injured his leg in the game, and he's out for the season also, the running back, Verdell. And that's, unfortunately for him, that's 2 years in a row he's got a leg injury. He's out for the season. I don't know what to think further going forward, because without Verdell, that running game is going to take a bit of a hit.
Yeah, CJ Verdell is a good one. I knew that he was hurt. I didn't know the extent of that, or that they had ruled him out for that long. And yeah, Oregon still, I believe, has the best team in the league, but this certainly makes it difficult to run the table.
Oh yeah, I don't know. It adds much more complication, because they started running Verdell, everything started looking good, then got hurt, and then everything kind of fell apart in the fourth quarter. And yeah, they have the freshman. Crap, I can't remember his name. It starts with a D. It's like Bradshaw or something like that, and he looked decent, but he's a freshman, so it's good experience for him. But They also said Verdell is thinking well, they said they would have discussions, obviously, about a 6-year, because obviously he's a 5th-year senior now. Because of the COVID year, plus the injury last year, came back, got injured again. So I was just curious on your thoughts, because I have 2 scenarios. Like, he could come back, get a medical, probably medical redshirt or gray shirt. I'm not sure which one they would call it for that level of senior, and come back for a 6-year and prove that he can stay healthy for a full season again, despite his already good statistics, or jump to the NFL and, cash in on some money. But with the NFL looking at running backs as they underrate the running back position these days because they take so much hit. Would it be worth him going back to prove that for a 6th year? I wouldn't blame him either way if he wanted to go back and prove himself a year to stay healthy, or leave and try to cash in on some money in a potential contract. I wouldn't blame him either way. But what would be your thought if you were, his mindset? I know that's hard to do. So this was a curious thought.
Well, this is the whole reason why, or one of the main reasons why, the NFL works with college football to institute this this scouting report that's given to, in this draft grade that's given to each player who requests it, who's needing to make that decision, is to get a better understanding of where they're rated and evaluated and most likely going to be drafted. So that would be the determination if he was trying to determine whether he needed to come back to college football to improve his level of play, or whether he was draft eligible and draft worthy. That would be the number one consideration to make, or the number one piece of information needed to make that decision.
Well, no, that's an extremely fair point. That's a whole different. I would think that would be a third option, third consideration to enjoy his choice, because 6 years, and especially running backs, they take a beating, and a lot of the NFL, the running back takes a real big beating. So most people who stay 4 years, even, they've already taken a beating. So most NFL, I think so. They've already lost like a couple years of ability, so to say, in the long stance. But tough year. The Ohio State win has gone away already very quickly.
Well, it's only one loss. It's only one loss. I know that you're discouraged by the injuries as well, but it's only one loss.
Oh yeah, no. It is one loss. It's only one, and we already knew we could endure one loss. And I'm hoping it will be like the 2014 team where we lost to Arizona for the 2nd year in a row, and like the team woke up and went, "That's it."
There you go.
Plus, in the Stanford game, we didn't have Joe Moorhead calling plays, so that also, I think, did take a toll. But regardless of that, I think maybe this could be that wake-up game where it lights everyone on fire, especially with the injuries.
Could be. I do think you're the best team on, every game remaining on the schedule. That doesn't mean you're going to win them all. All right. Well, I appreciate the call.
No, I appreciate you, Mark, and you have a good night.
Thank you so much.
I'll talk to you later here from Trinidad.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate that call, and take care. All right, 2 more calls tonight. Let's knock them out. And again, tomorrow night, everyone, let's have the biggest crowd we've ever had in here, which is about 900. Let's go for 1,000 tomorrow night here at the Voice of College Football for our big wrap-up show Saturday night, following all the big games. Saturday, 11 p.m. Eastern time, 1,000 people online. Let's go for that. Bring in anybody you know. Bring him in to talk college football with us. All right. Who's next on the line?
Kevin, Dallas, Georgia. How you doing this evening, Mark?
Kevin, how you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just wanted to chime in on 2 topics. One was in reference to the one-time only 32 signings for this year. How do you feel about those 7 additional scholarships?
Oh,
Because I'm just an unbiased opinion. I mean, just seemed like Bama and the Buckeyes will load up this year.
well, I haven't really thought too much about it or looked into it. It just seems like another measure that's that they're putting in place to guard against the unpredictability of the roster influx because of what we had to experience with the pandemic, but now even going forward year to year through the transfer portal. I don't have any negative thoughts about it.
Well, as a Bama fan, I don't either, Mark. But it just seemed like it would hurt as far as those teams are not, quote, the top 5.
Well, unless I'm missing something, I
was-
don't know why it would hurt anyone more so than it would help the major powers. If anything, it would allow more roster spots for the lesser teams to provide depth.
Well, I guess I'm just looking at it through crimson glasses, Mark. But but that notwithstanding, in reference to university, as far as I thought I read as far as on a scroll, as far as the prospect of Auburn beating Alabama, as far as being that fly in the ointment this year, and I would beg to differ just in maybe 2 respects. One is it goes without saying that hey, we have to bubble wrap William Anderson Jr. as well as Bryce Young for the remainder of the season. But I feel that the ripples will be as far as tomorrow night in Kyle Field, as well as in start Vegas, once again a night game as far as the following weekend. But as far as that next 3 game set stretch, as far as LSU home game, Arkansas home game, as well as the Goliath New Mexico State at home. One thing I believe as far as with those 3 games, the one guy, as well as LSU, the one guy that I think should get maybe about a half a dozen reps a game over that 3 game stretch will be Jalen Milroe, because I believe that could be a godsend as far as being able to keep Bryce Young healthy going into the Auburn game.
Okay.
Because the one thing that I feel as far as the strength, and really this year it seems like the theme, Mark, is health. I don't know. I've been, just vicariously keeping up with the Buckeyes, but it seems that you all have been fairly healthy. But it seems pretty much across the league, like the gentleman that just got off talking about Oregon. And I mean, Oregon apparently is on the 1 deep, and he's singing the blues about as far as injuries, but then when it comes to other teams, it seems like as far as those teams that are 2 and 3 deep, that it's just a matter of the proverbial next man up mentality. Because, as far as example, as far as Alabama, they lost their starting right defensive end the first game. And then they had a redshirt freshman come in. He unfortunately got hurt last week. So now they're either going to have another redshirt freshman or a, quote, true freshman at that right defensive end as far as tomorrow night. So I guess the theme for this year is going to be, if you are who you say that you are, as far as being 3 and 4 deep, you should have a pretty good road as far as to the Final Four. But if you're only a 1 deep team, then you just need to go and get ready for the 22-23 season.
Yeah, well, there's a combination there. Every team is going to suffer injuries to a certain extent, but those teams that avoid key injuries to its best players and also avoid injuries stockpiling at one particular position are going to be in better shape. And there's a lot of complexities to what you just said, because as you well know, there are certain situations on every football team where the number 1 guy at any given position is, let's say, by far the best guard on the team. So if he gets hurt, there's a huge drop off to the next guard that they're going to put in his place. In other situations, the best tight end on the team is barely the best tight end on the team. The number 2 tight end, the number 3 tight end are basically just as good as the number 1 tight end. So losing that guy, not nearly as critical. So it's about not losing your best and most unique players, and it's about not losing a rash of players at the same position. And it's also about what you just stated, that the best teams, put it this way. If you're going to use numbers, let's say Alabama's, most of their frontline players, first team players, are 9s and 10s on a scale of 1 to 10. And Tennessee's are 5s, 6s, and 7s. And then Alabama's second team is a bunch of 6s and 7s. Tennessee's are a bunch of 4s, and then so it multiplies and grows the disparity between the very tip top of college football and everybody else, as long as the injuries are equal.
True.
And then on top of that, not to cut you off, Kevin, but I thought of one other thing involving that. On top of that, if you're at Tennessee, most likely those frontline players are going to have to play more snaps than they will at Alabama, because Alabama's up by 40 points in the third quarter. Therefore, they can play the full roster. The Tennessee team has to rely on its best players to play fourth quarters of almost every game, because they're only they're playing a single score game. So that even multiplies the issue for the lesser teams, because they're playing competitive games every game, or almost every game. Alabama's playing like 3 or 4 competitive games the entire year, and the other 8 or 9, they're able to sub in people in the second half.
That is true. And in part, Mark, I was going to ask you in reference to Mark Rogers, you are a $5 million plus a year coach, and the following 5 jobs are available at the end of this season. How would you rate them as far as interest? USC, LSU, Florida, Florida State, and Miami. Which would be your top 3? I would have more than just a feigning interest at.
USC 1, LSU 2, Florida 3, Miami 4, Florida State 5.
One last question, Mark. Why did you have your last 2 in that order?
Because there's more talent in South Florida than in Northern Florida, and less competition for it. If you can drive a stake and build a flagship program to say, we own this territory, where Florida State's battling Auburn, Alabama, LSU, Florida for talent in the north end of Florida, whereas Miami's the only team in South Florida, and the talent's even better down there.
That is true. Once again, Mark, thank you very much for the opportunity as far as to get on, as far as on your program. You take care, and hey, look forward to speaking with you all tomorrow, 11 Eastern.
Hey, Kevin, always appreciate hearing from you. Have a good one.
All right. Same to you now.
And our finale for the night. Let's make it a good one right here at the Voice of College Football. Then I'm going to watch some Arizona State and Stanford. What you got?
All right, me too. I'm on your side. I'm on your side tonight.
Got
George.
I just ranked.
I'd like to watch it too.
Just ranked your job opening as number 3 out of those 5. Did you hear the previous caller?
Yes, I said Florida number 1. I wrote Florida with exclamations in the chat. But yeah. That was, what were the first 2?
USC and LSU.
Okay, that's good. The reason I went with Florida is because Bear Bryant once said that Florida is the most perfectly situated university in America. And he said when they get their stuff right, he said they're just going to run off, national championships. And I think he's right. We have the stadium, we got the campus, we got the rank, if you're intellectual, we're even good enough for you. I mean, what's going on? All we need is a coach. Just think if Urban Meyer would have been a good guy, he could still be there and have 5 national championships.
So when did you go south on Dan Mullen?
When Kentucky beat us.
Okay.
And it's
I
not
was going to
just
say, I
that
thought you
they
were a
beat
Dan
us.
Mullen guy.
I'm a fair weather fan, man. You lose once or twice, you're fired. I ain't putting up with it.
Okay.
We had the ball on inside the 10 for 7 plays in a row or something with a minute and a half to 2 minutes to go in the game. I mean, it's Laurel and Hardy, Keystone Cops bullshit. You putting up with that? I'm not paying someone $7 million a year for that. I'd fire him tomorrow and appoint somebody else head coach. The only reason we did good last year is Brian Johnson was our quarterback coach, and now he's the quarterback coach for Bill Belichick or something. I'm tired of it. He better win every game the rest of the year in the national title, so I forgive him. At least get in the playoffs. And that means you got to beat Georgia and not lose again, and maybe even win the SEC title game. I don't know.
I'm going to say
You think
something,
we'll
George,
shoot off Florida?
that may not sit well with you, and I don't know if this is the truth, but it could be that the administration there at Florida is okay with what's happening there. They're okay with just being good. That might be the case.
If I was the athletic, I agree 100%. If I was the athletic director, when he got put on sanctions last year for a recruiting violation, considering the fact he's never recruited a great player, he can't get a 5-star, considering that he got put on recruiting violations. I mean, like, I'd have fired him immediately. That would have been for cause. We wouldn't have had to pay him his buyout. What is wrong with those administrators? How about this? We won every game last year and lost the last 4, and now we're on like a losing streak. Well, what is it? Like lost the last 7 out of 5 or whatever, just 5 out of 7 to every ranked team or anybody that's even in our league. Things are looking bad from my perspective.
I guess you have. You've lost. You have lost. Yes, the last 5 consecutive games against Power 5 teams.
There's this guy in the comment section called Hugh Lee. He tried to tell me, and I just, I'm the eternal optimist. I'm going to give the guy one more chance. I'm still giving him one more chance. Go get the national title this year and I'll forgive you. Otherwise, I'm going to start bad-mouthing him on the internet like everybody else. Ammonia Wilder's happy right now. He's laughing at me. He's a bulldog. I don't think he has nothing to laugh about. His coach ain't won nothing either. If Georgia is happy being the bride, if Georgia's happy being the bridesmaid, they should have kept Mark Richt.
I don't think they're happy with that. They're trying to do something about that.
Then why are they bragging? They're bragging about some guy that has done nothing any better than Mark Richt ever did, except he did it with all 5 stars. Explain that one to me. I don't even understand.
There's a difference between what the fan base is saying and what the administration is deciding.
Yeah. I'm just saying, when your coach looks retarded when he talks on TV, don't they have somebody to screen this stuff through? Like, how's he going to look on TV? Kirby Smart looks dumb, and Dan Mullen looks like an idiot. Nick Saban's the only one that acts right. Ed Orgeron, he got his issues. Urban Meyer got his. It's just on and on and on. Where do they find these creatures? Can't act right. Can't talk on camera. Can't coach right.
George, if we expanded if we expanded what you just talked about there beyond sports, beyond football, to the leadership.
Let's hit Washington D.C. Yeah, I agree.
There are people that look a lot less capable on a podium behind a mic.
When I was on a live stream with Pete a little while back.
Yeah.
And the guy said to me, there's 4 or 5 people in the live stream. You can all see each other on those things. And the guy said to me, George, how did you escape from Area 51? And I said, oh, you're talking about Washington, D.C., right? And he said, no, it's in Nevada. And I said, no, it isn't. They're talking about making Washington the 51st state. That's the official Area 51. Have you seen anybody from there? They're obviously alien. Isn't it true? Like, where do you even find people that look like that? Let alone what comes out of their mouth. Anyway, I'm just upset about Florida, that's all.
Well, you're going to win
The
tomorrow.
biscuit- the
You're going to
biscuit
win
just-
tomorrow. You
Listen,
got Vandy.
the biscuit just said, thank you. Really, the biscuit just said George is an old Jewish woman from Brooklyn or something like that. That's freaking funny, man. A Jewish woman from Brooklyn. And let me tell him something. I've known old Jewish women. He's not far off, you know? That's close. He's talking about like somebody with an attitude.
All right.
My dad had a truck stop.
Yes.
No, one last story.
One last story.
It was short. Okay, then we got to go to football. But my dad had a truck stop on Orange Blossom Trail in Orlando, Florida. This is the bad side of town. And you think Orlando don't have a bad side? Yes, it does. Right? And so he made $1 million in his restaurant. We just racked up cash. And all of us worked there. He had 4 sons. We were all from like 16 to 20 or something. This was a real operation.
Yep.
It was so wild, so raucous. We just didn't know what to do with the graveyard shift, right? Bikers, pimps, hookers, drugs. You know, he hired an old Jewish lady, about 60. She had that shit straightened out in like 2 days. Me and my dad, my brothers were all sitting there going like, you're cool. And she would tell us who's going to hit an old Jewish lady. I could handle this shit. We loved her dad so much. Her name was Janet. Anyway.
All right.
That's a true story.
Sure glad I got that one
Love
in.
you guys.
See you, George.
Yeah, she said that old Jewish woman from Brooklyn.
George was going to be the final call tonight, but somebody else calls and somebody else calls. Whoa. You guys got to hang up on the phone calls. I appreciate you calling in, but save it for tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, 1,000 people here online. I think we can do it. Welcome in. Who's on the line?
Hunter from Alabama.
Hunter, how are you?
Good. How are you?
More people are calling. I've been telling people not to call, and more people are calling, which I appreciate. That's a good problem to have. But please, we want to shut it down for the night. What's on your mind, Hunter?
Well, let's talk about this Alabama defense for a second.
Yeah.
I think we've seen improvements week to week.
I agree.
Was a little bit frustrated after the Florida game. And then, coming into that, I thought we played better at the Southern Miss game.
Okay.
I was at that game at Bryant-Denny, and I thought we looked a little bit more physical in that game than we did in previous games. And then you're seeing, like, the Ole Miss game, I think it just all came together. I think they were more focused. I think that Saban has gotten them to buy into what he wants them to buy into. And, guys like Drew Sanders really stepping up to, lead this, to fill in the shoes. Now, he's hurt right now, so he's not going to be playing tomorrow. But, we still got Dallas Turner. And so I think, give me your kind of take on this, because I know a lot of Bama fans like to give Pete Golding a lot of grief when things don't come together like we're used to seeing. But even last year, we were still a pretty good defense, even though we struggled at times.
Well, I got to say that I was somewhat surprised that the Alabama defense got pushed around in the second half at Florida. Because if we know anything about Florida's offensive line in the run game, it hasn't been very good. But they've really worked on the offensive line, the run blocking in that part of the game, and the Florida running back stable is pretty good. So anyway, Alabama struggled second half of that game. Ole Miss is a prolific offense. We know what they did against Alabama last year. We will have to see throughout the season because Ole Miss came into this game having not really played anyone that tough on defense. Louisville, Tulane, not really much there. But we know that this, by any indication, that Ole Miss is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, skill position players, one of the great running back stables in the SEC, and a really strong offense. And Alabama held them to under 300 yards. And more so than that, the situational performance by Alabama in that game on 3rd and 4th down against the Ole Miss, that was impressive because that's when the game was still a game, early in that no score 7-0, 14-0 range, when they seemed to have the right defense called for those key 4th down situations every time Ole Miss drove the length of the field. And they gave up a lot of yardage in the first quarter, but really demoralized Ole Miss to a certain extent with those 4th down stops. And then it was game, set, match, and the defense really gave up very little after that. So I'm impressed.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, Mark?
Yep.
You've seen Tim Smith in that first stop that we got on that first drive that Ole Miss had. And, he hasn't played a whole lot this year. I mean, you've seen him as a rotational guy, but I think in that specific scenario, they knew that he was capable of making plays like that when they put him in on that 4th and 1 situation. So seeing a guy like that being able to come in, in the rotation and make that play, and for me, and I'm sure you would agree, the thing that really stood out to me was when Ole Miss ran that option play, and Henry To'oto'o automatically, recognized what they were doing and was there when he needed to be. So I think, and I give credit. I mean, that's credit to coaching right there, because they prepared for that. And you've seen some other things like where they were just recognizing things. Where in that Florida game, they were like they weren't really recognizing what was going on. So it was just really encouraging to me to see that. And it's not Alabama fans got to get out of their head this notion that we're going to be like we were in 2011 and 2012. I mean, football has changed drastically.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to hold people to. It's not going to be a 10-0 game anymore. I mean, it's just not how college football is right now.
And even at that, and everything you said is right on the mark. They were pitching a shutout at halftime. They were up 28-0. Basically, the 3 touchdowns they gave up were meaningless. They didn't mean anything. So they were playing that kind of defense in the first half to a certain extent. Maybe not from a yardage standpoint, they were bending, but they gave up nothing.
Yeah. Bryce really showed on the offensive side of the ball. One thing that stood out to me is I love Young's ability to step up in the pocket and make plays like he did to Cameron Latou. Being able to recognize coverage. And I really do think this. I think he is better at reading defense than Tua was.
It could be.
And he's got that quick release, kind of like Tua had. But I think he's more of an instinctual player than Tua was. And that's not taking anything away from Tua. I mean, we've seen what Tua was and what he did. But I really like this kid. I don't know if Alabama, because of his frame, if Nick Saban is scared to run him like we did with Jalen. Jalen was a little bit bigger. So I wonder, do you think that could be a factor in them not, giving him the green light to run in some scenarios where he probably could get a few yards?
Sure. And I don't know that Jalen's somewhat bigger. I think that he's noticeably bigger, stronger, thicker than Bryce Young.
Yeah. And then one more thing before I let you go. What's up with your Buckeyes? They just don't look like the Buckeyes that we've seen the last few years.
My Buckeyes? Really?
You're a Buckeye fan, right?
That's what people say.
Oh, so you wouldn't identify as a Buck fan?
What's wrong with the Buckeyes? They played a miserable game on defense against Oregon and had a quarterback who made one key mistake in that game. Since then, they've gotten better each week, and they made a decision to switch the play calling on defense from the defensive coordinator to the defensive back coach, Matt Barnes. And, we're not going to know until they play a quality opponent, but considering that Rutgers was playing some pretty good football before that, they put up 45 points at halftime last week, and we're up 45-6 on Rutgers. So that seemed to be a pretty good indication that they're figuring things out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I don't fault them a whole lot too much for that loss against, Oregon. I can't help. I mean, I can't help but to say that I thought it was hilarious to see them lose to Oregon, just from a pure fan perspective, just from an Alabama fan perspective. But other than that, but they don't. They just don't seem that they can get the corner position right, the secondary right. The secondary just still doesn't look like the secondary that they had during Urban Meyer.
You're right. And I'll add to it linebacker. The linebacker position has been mediocre.
And I haven't. Okay, so let me ask you if this is a reasonable take here. This is just my personal opinion.
Yep.
See if you can see where I'm coming from. I don't know that. What's his name? I now blank on the head coach's name.
Ryan Day?
Ryan Day.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it that Ryan Day really is a good football coach? Or is he still piggybacking off of some of the success that Urban had? Now, he has recruited very well. I will give him that. But from a pure coaching perspective, leave the recruiting aside. Could you see some credence to that, or am I totally off?
Okay. So the two comments you made were, is Ryan Day really a good football coach, or is he piggybacking off of Urban Meyer's program? The answer is both. Ryan Day is a good football coach. Is he a great football coach, an exceptional elite football coach? I don't know that yet. I know that he's at least capable. Is he benefiting from taking over one of the top 3 football programs in the country? Absolutely. He didn't have to build anything. He's not walking in at Oregon State or Rutgers trying to build a football program. He was gifted with a top 3 roster in the country and all the money in the world and facilities and everything. Yeah. He didn't have to build a program.
What is his resume
just has to maintain it.
Before?
He coached a lot in the NFL.
Before?
Coached with the 49ers in particular. Yeah, a lot of quarterbacking related work in the NFL.
Okay, cool. One last quick question. Who do you see USC hiring? If you had to guess.
I think, you know what's funny about these job openings is that there's always a roll call that everybody's already made out, me included, that's got all the top candidates of Matt Campbell, Luke Fickell, PJ Fleck, James Franklin. That seems to be the list right there. But it rarely turns out to be one of those guys. Who do I think is going to be the next coach at USC? Man, that's a great question. Because I
is Ogeron out at LSU?
I think he's just about out the door. They have all sorts of off the field issues, and they're not winning. I think his days are numbered. Now, if USC is going to consider Ed Ogeron, then they really don't know how to run a football program. Why they would even consider hiring him, I have no idea. I don't know what he's really done to show that he's really that good of a coach.
Yeah, that would be a horrible hire. I mean, that would probably be. And I'm not just saying this just because I'm an Alabama fan at all, but I legitimately don't think he's a good football coach. Now, he might be a good position coach, but I don't think he's a good head coach. He got lucky with he got a once in a lifetime thing.
Yep.
Where he inherited Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow is his success to win a national championship. Yeah, he had a good defense and a good secondary that year, but other than that, there's just nothing really that he did that was, mind blowing.
Absolutely, Hunter. All right. Well, I appreciate the call.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We are dragging with these calls a little bit. I think I called our last call like 5 calls ago. Let's knock them out. 2 more. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. This is Steve from Florida. I was praying to God you get to me. First of all, if I remember everything, because that guy had a whole bunch of things wrong. First of all, let me address LSU. The 2019 LSU had some of the greatest moments in college football history. That's coming from an Ohio State fan who I also thought that 2019 Buckeyes was one of the greatest teams ever. They had a hell of a lot more players than just Joe Burrow, including Delton, who, as a true freshman, was one of the best defensive backs in the country. Second, Brian Day is a hell of a coach. He recruits in the top 3 every year besides 2018. When he first got here, he was, I believe we had the number 13 recruiting class, 13 or 14. Other than that, it's been top 5 every year. Hell of a recruiter, hell of a coach. Also, if I had to answer that question, who's the next USC head coach, I'd definitely say Tom Herman, just because I can't stand Tom Herman and I want him to get fired again. Also, I saw a comment that somebody says that Iowa will win the Big Ten this year. And I just have one question for you. If we played Iowa today, Ohio State versus Iowa, their defense versus their offense, who wins?
All right. Well, let's back up a second here. You really don't believe that USC is going to hire Tom Herman?
I would love to.
You just want to see it. For some reason, you don't like Tom Herman.
Yeah,
okay.
I can't stand Tom Herman.
Okay, you don't like Tom Herman. Did he do anything personally to you?
I think that when he coached Ohio State, got hired at Houston, decided to try to screw us. Him and his wife, butting in on the Coach Smith debacle.
Gotcha.
I still love Coach Smith.
Okay.
I just think he's a weasel. And
all right. You don't like Tom Herman, so he's not going to be the next USC coach. That would shock me, that they would hire a failed coach at Texas. at USC. But then again, USC doesn't make the most wise decisions. All right. There was something else you said in there that I wanted to get to. Yeah, the LSU team of 2019 was loaded on both sides of the ball, especially offense, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah, they sent like 20 players to the NFL. Yeah. The thing I'll say about Ryan Day being a phenomenal coach and recruiter is understand where he's recruiting. Understand where he's recruiting to.
Yeah.
Like
I think he's just, a hell of a coach. I think. Yeah.
Well, understand that there are. It's difficult to do, but there are some coaches out there that have had to walk into situations and upgrade the recruiting immensely.
Absolutely.
Like Mark Stoops at Kentucky. Ryan Day didn't have to do that. He just had to do what Urban, and I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying that he's maintaining.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not hard to maintain at Ohio, but it's also not hard to bring down a top 5 program.
Yeah, it's done all over the place.
It's not very hard.
Charlie Strong did it.
Yeah.
Sure, Charlie Strong did it. Lane Kiffin did it. All sorts of, and Steve Sarkisian at USC. Yeah, all sorts of coaches have brought down top 5 programs. Willie Taggart did it at Florida State. So then your last question was something about what was the last point that you had?
Ohio State versus Iowa.
Who wins the Big Ten championship game? If they, Ohio State wins.
He says, "What's wrong with Ohio State?" And I'm like, and he also said something about our DBs. We have one of the best freshman cornerbacks in the nation right now, Denzel Burke. We have
one guy. Well, wait a minute. You got to understand the perspective of the last caller. He's an Alabama fan who watched his team tear that secondary and the linebackers as well to shreds. So he's wondering what I know they're a different team, but they were torn to shreds by Oregon and by the Tulsa quarterback Bryn. So they're not playing that well this year either. They're coming along, they're getting better. But the defensive back 7 for Ohio State the last 2 years has not been good. I hope you don't think it's been good.
Oh no! I think that last year
there you go.
Most of the year, our defense we were a whole bunch of chickens with our heads cut off, running around, getting lost in coverage and everything else.
So that's why that's where that comment came from. All right.
But you have to understand.
What do I need to understand? What do I need to understand?
When Alabama shredded us, it's a quarterback who went in the the first round, and it's a wide receiver who was a Heisman winner.
Sure.
We had no plan for it. We had our defense knew we were going to get shredded.
Well, Michael Penix did that too.
Everybody said that the only way we had a chance to. Yeah. Everybody was basically saying the only way we have to win, and nobody else believed we win, we had to score every possession because our best chance to win is to score every possession.
Exactly. So something's wrong. So that means something's wrong. If you got to score every possession to win, something's wrong on defense. All right, man. Well, I appreciate the call.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Have a good one. Appreciate it. And let's wrap it up here because tomorrow night, what's going to happen is about basically all of you are going to go out there and get about 10 more people, and we'll flood the live chat tomorrow night. How about that? Welcome into the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I got you. Who is this?
Yes. This is Christian. I born and raised in New Orleans, moved to Houston.
Yeah.
Now I am a student up at BYU.
Okay.
So I'm kind of
all right.
Got my foot in both fields here. Bleed purple, but I'm going to be a BYU alum. So
cool.
I just had a question about our chances as far as the Cougars. I mean, we're down to our third string quarterback. I remember back when Clemson lost. I forget who it was to, but they didn't have their quarterback. and they gave them leeway because of that. We're down to our third string.
Oh,
I mean, we're not playing a great team, boys, but they're
2017.
decent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember when that was. It was when Trevor
Kelly
went down,
Bryant got hurt against Syracuse in 2017, and Clemson lost.
Oh no, it was who was it? It was Trevor, but and then
Oh, you're talking about last year against Notre Dame.
Oh, it was Notre Dame. Okay, well that's a big team stuff. But I guess that doesn't correlate. But I'm just wondering, would we get leeway if we were to lose and we're down our third string?
You can't
what
lose.
What do you think on that?
You can't lose.
Yeah.
Not against that schedule.
Well,
you can't lose. You don't play a conference championship game. You will not be a conference champion. You don't play a team that's better than Arizona State. You better be rooting for Arizona State right now. They're losing 14-7. You need Arizona State to come through. Utah, USC, Virginia, everybody on that schedule. Baylor.
Yeah. Baylor, I can't believe they lost. I was so bad. I actually bought tickets to that game to go down to Waco. It crushed me when they lost that game. Man. But they still could win that division, so hopefully that happens. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we're just banking on other people, I guess, at this point, right?
Well, you got to win your
But
games.
we still have to do our job.
The schedule's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not like crazy tough. It's not got any elite teams, but it's tough almost every week. You play like capable teams every week, so it's a tough schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate it. I just wanted to get your perspective.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on the show.
We took in the BYU game last Friday night. I don't know if you checked out that video, but it got me thinking about BYU's chances. So we just posted a video after last week's Utah State game. So may want to give that a look. We did the deep dive on BYU.
I saw that. The injuries are just, man, they're just popping off left and right, though. I'm a fear that, I mean, if I was any team we're going against right now and the quarterback's not playing, just crowd the box. Make this third string rookie or freshman, beat you. And, I mean, honestly, you just have to hope he can get it done. But, I mean, if he goes out, the running back, I don't know what we'll do then. That would be interesting. Very one-sided, I think, as far as offensively right now.
Well, we appreciate the call. Good luck to your Cougars.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thanks for the call. And am I really going to take one more call? I said last call like 6 calls ago. Welcome to the Voice of College Football.
What's up, Mark? I'm on that special now. I'll let you go.
That's all right, DeAndre.
I just can't wait for it. Yeah. How do I want to ask the question in a clear way? So, Oklahoma's a 2.5 point favorite over Texas.
Yeah.
I think if Texas got a good chance of winning this game, what you think?
Oh, I do. I think the same thing.
Yeah. I haven't really seen Oklahoma. I saw their running back coming back to play. So I think Texas is going to have a really good chance to beat Oklahoma this week. I like Texas's quarterback play sometimes, but other than that, I don't see anything wrong with them. So, what do you think about Auburn and Georgia? I don't think Daniels is playing, is he?
JT Daniels is not playing. No.
So you think that, they don't think Auburn got a chance with that one?
Do they have a chance?
Everybody got a chance.
Cheryl knows that I want to watch the Stanford-Arizona State game. I think that they've got a better chance than they would have because I've seen Stetson Bennett against really good teams not play well, like against Alabama last year. So if Auburn can somehow avoid getting down 21-0, what happened last week is before you could blink, Georgia was up 21-0, and Stetson Bennett had been forced to throw about 2 meaningful passes, and otherwise they didn't have to throw the ball the rest of the game, and he never was under duress. He never had a pressure situation, and he only had to throw 11 passes. And so if they can somehow stay in the game to where Stetson Bennett has to throw the ball, I think that's going to increase their chances.
Okay. Well, Mark, you go enjoy the game, man. I'll get up with you later.
I appreciate it, DeAndre. We'll talk to you later.
All right, bye.
Cheryl can tell I want to watch this game. That's why I made this at 9 o'clock, and I actually DVR'd this. So even though I see it's 14-7, you know what I'm going to do? As soon as we wrap up here, I'm going to click the DVR. I'm going to start at 0-0 because I'll be able to catch up. There's so many commercials and halftime in these games that you can catch up. You can be an hour behind and catch up. Tomorrow night, folks, I am going to be here after the primetime games. I thought about doing a Michigan-Nebraska watch party, but we'll be here after the games to discuss college football with all of you. And throughout the day, folks, keep in mind, I hope everyone that's listening to me follows me on Twitter. Keep in mind that we're going to have post-game shows just all over the place. Nebraska, Michigan. So the Nebraska-Michigan game, we're going to have Nebraska post-game on the Nebraska channel, Michigan post-game on the Michigan channel. That's the Voice of College Football expanding to the point where you can pick your post-game show. How about that? Got the Michigan post-game, you got the Nebraska post-game. Ohio State, Maryland. Sorry, Maryland fans, we only have the Ohio State post-game on the Ohio State channel. Florida State, who in the world did they play? North Carolina, FSU post-game. We've got Texas A&M post-game after their game against Alabama. That's right. And we've got Alabama post-game. That's another game in which we've got post-game from both sides. So please support our post-game shows. Oklahoma, Texas. We're going to have the Texas version right here at the Voice of College Football on the main channel, and Oklahoma post-game as well. All right. Otherwise, everybody grab 10 people. Be back here tomorrow night after the primetime games. We'll take your calls and respond to your comments and questions after a huge day of college football right here at the Voice of College Football.